I have been on a mission to transform my 1991 Mazda Miata from a totally stock original car to a nice tasteful OEM Plus driver's car. So far I've done chassis reinforcements, suspension, brakes, wheels and tires, and in the last video I did all the bushings in the rear end. In this video I'm going to finish things up by replacing all the front control arm bushings and steering components. You join me once again in my driveway where I've taken the liberty of raising the car up, getting the wheels off, and getting everything ready to disassemble. The one thing that's going to be a bit different about doing the front compared to what I did on the back is I'm leaving all the brake stuff alone because I already did it. So I'm going to try to leave it connected and just kind of move it off to the side while I get all the control arms off and tie rods and ball joints and all that fun stuff. So without further ado, start taking stuff apart. One of the nice things about working on the front end is I can actually rotate the wheels back and forth and get better access to things. So I'm going to be doing a lot of that, I think. I'm going to start with the tie rod ends. As you watch this video, just realize I am not a real mechanic. I'm just a guy. I've been messing around with cars for a long time, but I still barely know what I'm doing. So if I can do this project, there's a pretty good chance you can too. I think it makes sense to do the upper one first. Temporarily put this back on just to hold things in place. See? Got it started. So maybe I won't even pop this out yet until I get the lower one out. Yeah. Now to actually separate these things. So I have the classic pickle fork, but I also recently picked up one of these type of ball joint separator tools. I'm going to start with the pickle fork. It's old, reliable, but let's see how it goes. And in this case I don't mind ripping the ball joint boot because I'm putting new ones in. Of course, right after I stopped recording, a couple more hits and I got it. So at this point, I kind of have a couple options. This lower ball joint unbolts from the control arm, so I could just unbolt it and separate the whole thing, but I still have to get it out of the knuckle. And since I want to leave the brake line attached, I think it's going to be easier to detach it from the knuckle now, and then I can deal with replacing it later. Oh, yay. Phew. Free that, lift that off. If I didn't need a new lower ball joint before, well, I probably do now. That boot is ruined. But since this is probably the hardest part, I'm going to go ahead and do the other side before I take the control arms off. Let's go. No one will ever see it. Oh, easy. Oh. Well, there you go. All I had to do was hit it with a hammer. Okay. Yes. Beautiful. Downside of the pickle fork. I didn't realize how far it was going and I completely gouged holes into the dust shield. Not sure what I'm going to do about that. Probably just paint over it and pretend it didn't happen. Okay, so I'd like to take this lower ball joint off while the control arm is still on the car because it gives it support. But in order to get to that bolt inside, I'm going to have to take the shock off. And while I'm doing that, I'll go ahead and separate the sway bar and link as well. Oh yeah. This is so difficult. There we go. And that is lower ball joint removed. Next on the agenda is the sway bar end link, where it attaches to the lower control arm. By the way, here's one of the main differences between rubber bushings and poly bushings. See, when I push down on this, there's nothing attached to it, but it's under tension because the rubber and the steel inner sleeve are vulcanized together. So when I'm pushing on this, I'm actually twisting the rubber bushings inside there. With the poly bushings, they're just free floating and they just rotate at will, so this isn't going to be an issue anymore. Same with the upper arm. Nothing attached to it, but it's under tension. So next I'm going to go ahead and take off the inner tie rods with the outer tie rod still on. Might see if I can save like this clip and possibly even the wire tire back there. As you can see, I need new boots, but the new boots just come with zip ties, so it might be nice to use these original fasteners. Here we go. Okay, so the inner tie rods have these little bent over washers on them. So I'm gonna have to unbend 4 of these tabs around each side before I can actually undo it. Okay. Big crescent wrench fits. Oh, it was easier than I thought it would be. So I should be able to just, yeah. Oh, that's crusty. Wow. Gonna have to do a little cleanup in here. There it goes. Okay. Okay, so before I take off the control arms, I'm gonna go around and mark where the alignment is currently, so I can have some hope of getting it drivable to the alignment shop. There we go. One lower control arm. So normally the upper control arm is really easy. There's a nut on one end and it's a really long bolt that goes all the way through. And normally you can slide it through this hollow in the sway bar mount. But I just had to be special and install these sway bar reinforcing blocks, which are going to get in the way of that bolt coming out. So I'm pretty sure I'm going to have to take those out first, and then I can take the upper control arm bolt out. There we go. There we go. There we go. Keep track of all the washers. There we go. Got it. Okay, well, there it is. This side's gonna be even more fun because of all those hoses and stuff in the way. Most of you aren't gonna have to deal with this. These are extra add-on reinforcing blocks, so this is my problem. And just like that, the major part of disassembly is done. But we still need to strip these control arms, so let's start with the upper ball joints. Using my handy Harbor Freight press that I've gotten quite a bit of use out of, and the right stack of objects, it makes short work of getting these ball joints out. Aha. So many pieces. All of these front control arm bushings have a lip on one side, and I realized I would have to cut them out of the way in order to use the adapter tube thing that I have to push them out. So this took a little extra time, but it worked out in the end. To get the bushings out, I just used the old-fashioned screw jack technique, where you have a bolt that fits inside the bushing and is long enough, the right combination of washers, and a tube essentially that can receive the bushing as you screw it out. The process on the lower control arms was basically the same. Once all the bushings were out, I could start cleaning up the control arms. I gave them a thorough cleaning and degreasing before giving them a bath in Evapo-Rust for a few hours to take care of as much surface rust as I could. I could have left them in for a whole day, which would have eaten more of the rust, but then it starts to soften the paint, and I wanted to be able to use the old paint as a base for the new paint. After a whole lot of wire wheeling and scuffing, these are ready for some fresh chassis black. Knowing that I was approaching the time of reassembly, I spent some time cleaning up the rust on the steering rack. I wire wheeled as much of it as I could and gave it a brush-on coat of rust reformer paint to hopefully stop it from coming back or getting worse. And now it's finally time to start reassembly. It's always fun to lay out all the new or reconditioned parts and see what we're working with. I've got new polyurethane bushings by SuperPro, inner tie rods and alignment bolts from Super Miata, and most of the other components are by Moog, starting with the upper ball joints. These are greasable units unlike the originals, and there's some assembly required, but the first step is to press them into the control arms. That should do it. Always drop that one. Next I can install the grease fittings, followed by the big snap rings that give an extra layer of security. Now hopefully I can get the boot on. The dust boots proved to be a lot harder than I expected. What ended up working was I found a random plumbing fitting that was the right size, jammed it into my vise, and used a C-clamp to clamp down the other side of the boot. Oh, it worked. Holy crap. Then I could hook up a grease gun and fill these up with some fresh grease. Finally, I cleaned up all the bushing holes in preparation for the new bushings. Okay, we are ready to put our first bushings in. Of course, going with the SuperPro again because I really like the design of them. They're a softer polyurethane. They have this nice knurling inside to retain grease. And these nice grooves around the outside to retain grease as well. And they come with everything you need. They even come with some nice little directions for each piece to show you any specifics you need to know. So in this case, there's a bigger flange on one side. So the big flange side goes on the big flange side. See what I mean? So I'm going to use my usual screw jack technique to get these in and just grease everything up. Once they were all greased up, I found it possible to just push in the upper control arm bushings by hand. I did need a little bit of help from the vise to get the inner sleeves in though. When it came to the lower control arm bushings though, I did need to break out the screw jack again. Once all 4 control arms were done, I can finally start putting things back on the car. Like I mentioned earlier, if these were stock rubber bushings, I would have to get everything back together and get weight on the suspension before torquing the control arms. But since these are free rotating, I can go ahead and torque them right now. Here are my fancy new alignment bolts. I'm just going to line these up with the marks I made on disassembly, but I will for sure need a professional alignment before this project is truly finished. Oh my gosh, is it really 75 foot-pounds? Whew. With the control arms all torqued up, I could install my new lower ball joints and reattach the shocks. And I gave the steering rack a quick clean and grease before it gets covered up. Alright, let's take a quick look at the inner and outer tie rods. I've got these new fancy forged inners from Super Miata. And then the outers are just normal Moog, should be good. But before I put things together, I left the old ones intact because I wanted to be able to measure where the adjustment is and try to get it close on the new ones. These also come with these washers, which not all inner tie rods come with new ones. Sometimes you gotta reuse the nasty bent up old ones. So, nice little upgrade. Let's get them installed. I made an attempt at measuring the length of the inner and outer tie rods on the old ones before taking them apart to salvage these little clips. I'm just hoping to get the wheels relatively straight when I put things back together, but there's other ways to check it, which we'll see in a little bit. We'll put our washer on, like so. Okay, I've got the steering turned all the way to the left, just to make this maybe a little easier. I don't know. See how this washer slots into these slots on the end of the steering rack? Pretty cool. Basically, let me just give this a nice torque down. Now technically there are tools out there that will allow you to attach a torque wrench and get a proper torque reading, but I like to think I can get a pretty good feel for what 60 foot-pounds feels like. It feels like about 58 to 72. The next step is to bash over the 4 corners of this washer, which is pretty tricky to do when there's so little access, but with enough perseverance, it's possible. Yeah, let's do the other side. So, basically when it doesn't want to turn anymore, you're good. You get the point. Then I went to put the new dust boots on, and I have to admit I kind of cheaped out on these, and they turned out to be not very good. For one thing, the original clips didn't even fit over them, they were so flimsy. And when I went to put the driver's side on, it split. Oh, I freaking ripped it. Oh, shit. So I'm gonna get some better ones and come back to this later. While I wait for those to arrive, there's no reason I can't finish reattaching the sway bars and get the brake spindles back on. When it comes to these castle nuts, you want to torque them to spec, and then if the cotter pinhole doesn't line up, you keep tightening it until it does line up. A couple days later, I got my new premium dust boots. So off came the crappy hard plastic cheap ones. You can see the difference in the material here. The new ones are much softer and they fit better too. These wire ties that came with are really nice, but it seemed like it was way too long. I don't know if I did this wrong. Maybe I was supposed to wrap it around twice, but I made it work. And most importantly, my nice original clips worked. With that done, I could finally install the tie rods, and that's pretty much the last major puzzle piece. Man, it feels good to finally have everything back together. This project definitely took me a little while, but I am looking forward to that first drive. Before I go for a real first drive, I need an alignment, and in order to make it to the alignment shop, I wanted to do a decent eyeball job using a piece of string. I'm really just looking to see how the front wheel compares to the rear wheel and how it's tracking. This front left is actually towed out a little bit, which is not what you want. So I'll loosen the retaining nut on the tie rod and adjust the inner tie rod so it tows in very slightly. The front right wheel actually looks pretty good, so I'm just going to leave it alone. After this, I went and got a professional alignment done, and it was not a moment too soon because I embarked on a birthday road trip up Highway 1 along California's Big Sur coast. Something I've been wanting to do in the Miata for a long time, and the drive was absolutely glorious. This road in this car with its refreshed suspension was just a dream. Well, I've now been living with these new bushings for a couple months because of how slow I am at editing videos. But at least that gives me a good chance to review how it's been living with all new bushings in the car. And I gotta say, for the most part, it's been awesome. I mean, the use case of this car is a fun canyon, mountain road carving, handling machine. And when the main focus is handling, yeah, going with all SuperPro bushings has been awesome. It feels way more confident on windy roads. It just handles so stable now. The only drawbacks would be if you're on a rough, bumpy road, yeah, more of those bumps and jolts are going to transmit through the car and you're going to feel them a bit more. And it exposes some of the weaker parts of the chassis, like I'm noticing the cowl shake a bit more, so I might do some reinforcing in that area later on. And then the diff bushings, they do clunk a bit when you're changing gear and stuff like that. But once you're on a windy road, you kind of forget about all that and the benefits become very apparent. Everything I've done to this car so far, including the chassis reinforcements, all the suspension, and to a big extent the tires, using good tires, all of it adds up to such a nice handling car. I love this thing so much. Well, I think I can call this project a big success. Really glad I did all this. It did take me a while. It was a lot of work just doing it myself in the driveway as a definitely not a professional mechanic. But here we are. We have success. The car just keeps getting better and better. And I'm not done. I still have more stuff I want to do. I have some interior upgrades I want to make this all a nicer place to sit. I've got some more chassis reinforcing to do. Try to take care of some of those wobbles. And yeah, I'm just going to keep driving it and enjoying it. So stay tuned for more Miata videos. I've also got some Volvo videos planned, some Opel stuff. You guys know the drill, you know the fleet. I hope you'll come back for more and enjoy the random car stuff. Thanks for watching. The lighting is weird on my face right now. Is that the reflection of the rear view mirror? Yep.
Hey everybody.